Sophia Morgan was the kind of student who lived for words. Since the age of 12, she had dreamed of becoming a writer, her notebooks filled with scribbled ideas, fictional characters, and half-finished poems. When she entered university, she declared English literature as her major without hesitation, fully believing that one day she'd be the next great novelist. But more than books, there was one person who inspired her deeply, Professor Lydia Hart. Known for her sharp mind and even sharper red pen, Professor Hart was infamous for pushing students beyond their limits, but also for recognizing true talent. Sophia admired her intensely and wanted nothing more than her approval. Throughout the semester, Sophia had thrived in Hart's class. Her essays were thoughtful, her insights praised during lectures. So, when the final paper came around, a free-form essay titled "The Story Only You Can Tell," Sophia poured her soul into it. She stayed up for nights, revising every sentence, polishing every metaphor. She submitted it with pride and a little hope that maybe, just maybe, Professor Hart would finally say the words she'd longed to hear. "You're a real writer." Instead, what she got back was a crushing red F scrawled across the title page. Her breath left her body when she saw it. At the bottom of the page, scribbled in Professor Hart's unmistakable handwriting, were the words, "This isn't your story. You're meant for more." Sophia felt betrayed, humiliated, broken. She couldn't even bring herself to ask why. She walked out of that classroom and never stepped foot in the English department again. She switched majors the next week. Communications, then marketing. She buried her passion under deadlines and client meetings, telling herself it had been childish anyway. Years passed. Sophia became successful in her career. She was a marketing strategist now, good salary, good reputation, decent life. But something was always missing. When the world got quiet, she would still hear the echo of that red-inked sentence. "You're meant for more." One day, a college invitation arrived in her inbox, a 10-year reunion. Against her instincts, she went. Maybe for closure. Maybe for curiosity. She wandered through old halls, now strangely small and unfamiliar. And then she saw her, Professor Hart, now retired, sitting quietly at a table flipping through an old folder of student work. Their eyes met. Sophia approached slowly. "Professor Hart," she said, voice tighter than she expected. Lydia Hart looked up and smiled softly. "Sophia Morgan. I was hoping I'd see you." Sophia wanted to be polite, but emotion bubbled up. "I've waited 10 years to ask. Why did you fail me? I gave everything I had to that paper." Hart didn't flinch. Instead, she opened the folder and pulled out Sophia's essay, still marked in red. "I remember. You wrote a beautiful piece. It was smart, poetic, but it wasn't yours." "What do you mean?" Sophia asked. "You were mimicking other writers. You knew how to impress. But your real voice? Your truth? It wasn't there," Hart said, tapping the paper. "You were hiding behind style." Sophia's chest tightened. "I failed you," Hart continued, "not because you weren't good, but because you were too good at hiding. I wanted to force you to stop writing what sounded good and start writing what was good. Raw, honest you. But I gave up," Sophia whispered. Professor Hart looked at her with eyes full of regret and hope. "It was never about pushing you away. It was about pushing you forward. Sometimes, Sophia, the hardest shove comes just before the leap." That night, Sophia went home and dug out her old journals. She began writing again. Not for grades, not for praise, but for herself. The words were clumsy at first, then healing, then whole. Months later, she launched a blog. A year later, a book deal. Her stories, memoirs of growth, identity, purpose, touched thousands. And in the dedication of her first published book, one line stood alone. "To the teacher who failed me, so I could finally begin." The toughest lessons create the strongest growth. Sometimes, rejection is just redirection in disguise. If this story moved you, take a moment to look back at your own toughest lessons. What did they teach you? Share your experience in the comments. I read every one. Comment. A time I thought I failed, but it changed me. Like if you've ever been stronger because of a setback. Share this video with someone who needs to hear. You're meant for more. Subscribe to Wisdom Tales for more powerful stories.